just going to start the camera, Ray, and we'll just leave it recording.
Yep.
I've got about 20 minutes maybe.
Oh.
And what I thought you could do is tell me about 2 or 3 memories that you have.
Yeah.
That you'll never forget. You know, things about the hall, things that have happened in the hall.
Yeah.
While you've been at Cambridge. So how long have you been at Cambridge Citadel now?
Oh, I was dedicated there.
Yeah.
In December 1930, I think.
Yes.
But
so you've been there
all my life.
All your life.
Near,
a time away, but you came back.
By Boxing Day, 90 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
Douglas and Sylvia beat me a little bit.
Yeah.
And have you spoken to Douglas on any of the events of those early days?
We've not been able to speak with Doug because of Sylvia being in hospital.
Yeah, but
I'm hoping I'll still talk to him, but it just depends on whether Sylvia gets well.
But he'd be the one who beats me on the records of the Corps by 4 or 5 years.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, my first recollection was of my grandfather with his 10 children. Those who weren't in the band sat in the hall, and with their boyfriends and their new wives, it filled nearly the left-hand side of the hall.
Right.
Great crowd of them. Once he finished playing in the band, he sat there with all the family, and in front of them were the Hall family, which Malcolm is an offspring of the Hall family, and his uncle married my aunt, so it was a very big family group. And over by the clock was the Reed family, and Grandma Reed, with all her children who weren't in the band, filled nearly all that side. And I don't remember what was in the middle of the hall, but the hall was always filled, and when the band had the open air on Parker's Piece, if you didn't get there early enough, you wouldn't get a seat. So a lot of people hurried quickly from the open air to get their seat in the hall, and if you were late, you'd almost have to sit on the windowsill.
So, Ray, how old were you at your grandfather's on that occasion?
My first recollections are about 1935. That was around the time that the hall had its first renovation after its building, and across the wall at the back of the platform was a great big artistic scroll which said, "In all thy ways acknowledge him." And sitting there, I was just beginning to read, and I could not get acknowledge. I could read the rest, but I could never. And Sunday after Sunday, at 4 or 5 years old, I tried to struggle with that word, acknowledge him. And after that, the hall was renovated, and we had our first properly built mercy seat. And this picture that you've seen in all thy, he will break every fetter, that was when the new mercy seat was put in there. I think whoever designed or asked for the Mercy Seat as it was had seen the Training College Mercy Seat, which was a very artistic, ornate. Whether it's still there, is it?
I couldn't tell you, Ray, that
It's
been there a long time.
Looking at the commissioning, I didn't see it. So whether the picture was taken,
Perhaps. Yeah.
But anyway, that was painted over then, and we had the Mercy Seat that was there for 70 years until the last time the hall was renovated.
Okay.
And we've had 3 inscriptions on the Mercy Seat. He can break every fetter, Jesus saves, and the last one, Jesus said, follow me. And after that, we've had no inscription, no text on the Mercy Seat. But we've still got the Mercy Seat here with the text, Jesus said, follow me.
That's right.
So
okay, Ray, yeah, that's a good recollection.
So that's about 1935 that I first remembered part of the hall and the families who frequented, and they were nearly all local people around the hall who made up the congregation, and then there are lots of other memories that come through. In 1935, Gypsy Smith, if you know anything of him, I think it was a festival in celebration of opening the hall after the renovation, the first renovation of the hall. And he was in Cambridge, and he was invited to chair the evening programme. And on the Monday morning, because he was by then 70-odd and well known throughout the churches, he was invited on the radio to speak on the thought for the day, and he chose that text, he can break every fetter, to talk on the radio. Okay. So that was about 1935, yeah, when that first text was put on, and then it was changed when we had another renovation years on.
Can you remember, was that around about the 1960s, Ray, that refurbishment?
Terry Jordan, I think did the next renovation in 1960, and I think the doors at the back were covered in at the back of the hall. Yeah. And after that, I've got a photo. Yeah. My eldest daughter was dedicated in 1961, and that was to the. There's a photo of it here somewhere.
I'll give you this one back. Which one do you need? This one?
What is that?
Is that it? Is that the dedication?
No, I think that's Philip and Stuart's.
Enrolment,
yeah. That was the centenary, the whole family. That's the singing company that was.
Yes.
That's, I think, the General and my niece, when they went to Russia, and
yeah.
he flew the American aircraft listening to the Russians. So he was fluent in Russian, and he went and interpreted for the general.
Let me just show that to the camera so we know which one we're talking about. Yeah, okay. This one here must be your eldest's dedication, is it?
Yeah. Grandfather, my father, myself, and Susan, the eldest. 1961.
Yes.
February 25th.
All right, well done with the date. Yeah, okay.
And she showed me her It's a Tuesday night. We were gathering for band practice, and we were in the band room collecting instruments and music, and in walked Dr. Ward, quietly as he always did, and one of the bandsmen shouted, "Oh, Gus, you got odd shoes on." I've got another pair like that at home, and quietly got his instrument, and that was it. And that story went round the world.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, but he was a great character, wonderful chap.
What was his name?
Dr. Ward, and we knew him as just Gus, and that was Grovinsky's nephew.
I see.
Who fled Russia.
Yes.
And there are several stories about him. One practice, P.O. in the middle. We've got a crescendo and a diminuendo. And we played it a number of times. You get down further than that. You come up. So several times we played it, and Dr. Gosh was on tenor horn in front of him, and Peirce was there. Let's have it again. Bandmaster, what percentage were you looking for? What did you say, Gus? Carry on. Yeah, what percentage?
That sounds like a mathematician.
Yeah, yeah, he was a wonderful. Well, his wife too. She was a treasure of the hall. Yeah, when I was in the Sunday school with her, she wore herself out. She built Sunday school to 100 children, and there are lots of incidents. One that stood out most to me was the band went right across Newmarket Road, and children were invited, of course, to come to Sunday school if they so desired, and a young girl turned up with her little friend. One was 8 and one was about 12, and they were inseparable. Age groups were split up, but she would never leave her younger friend. So she was quite a naive girl. But one Sunday, a year or two on, she sat in the front of the YP Hall, and everyone else went home. And Olive Ward was clearing up after Sunday school. Yet this young girl still sat there, and Olive Ward said, "Catherine, anything wrong? Can I talk to you, please?" "All right, in a minute." So she went and sat. "Now what's the matter, Catherine?" She said, "I can't come to Sunday school anymore." "Oh, no, well, I'm sorry to hear that. Any reason?" She said, "Well, I'm going to have a baby." "Oh," she said, "good friends don't part whatever happens." It appeared that an older man had given her too much drink and taken advantage of her, and that was the situation. And she said, "Oh, come on, jump in my car, we'll go and see Mum. So what transpired with meeting with Mum? But next Sunday she was there at Sunday school again, and this was in Yvonne Field's time, Yvonne Beck's time. That was about the age group that they were. And Olive Ward got these older girls together and explained to them what the situation was. And of course the chatter went round. But she got bigger and bigger and bigger. And she said, Olive Ward said, but a good idea if you do some knitting and things like that. But I think the mums did more than the children. But anyway, they collected all these things for a baby together, and the news was that she was in the maternity home, which is just over the road, was then, and when the baby arrived, they all trooped over with their little gifts to see this new little baby that had arrived, and the few Sundays afterwards, this great big pram was wheeled into the YP hall, and in her class with the others, the baby was there, and she was in her class, and the baby was sitting up in his pram when she met up with a nice man and married, and they went off to Bottisham, and that was the end of it. But I often wonder what I would have said if I'd was looking after Sunday school at that time. If the girl, I would say, all right, well, is that okay then? But Olive Ward, she took it up, and the girl happily married her, and we lost touch with her. Now that baby must perhaps be almost a grandfather now.
Yeah, wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
Good. Oh, that's a nice story.
Yeah, and there was lots similar to that Olive Ward, she would stand at the station on a freezing cold day in self-denial with her collecting box. Yeah.
Lovely. And
yeah.
Was she the young people's Sergeant Major, Olive?
In about 1954 or 5, around that time, there was no YPSM. The previous one we had Daisy Underwood for 30 years. And she had nearly every child in the area in Sunday school. A very quiet lady. She had her little bell, ding-a-ling-ling, that meant be quiet. But after that, we had no YPSM, and Olive Ward had 3 children, and there was no Sunday school for them. So she said, I was rather selfish when I volunteered to be YPSM for my children to have a decent Sunday school. So she worked away at Sunday school and built it up to 100 children, and she wore herself out totally. She was close to a nervous breakdown towards the end, so she packed up. So I was assistant YPSM, so I was landed with it. So I was on and off YPSM for 14 years, and she came back again when she recovered and started again. But she volunteered in about 1954 or 5, and she said, I'll do it if I can pick my team. And Faith's husband had been band leader down at
Reading?
No, beyond that. Never mind, I'll think of it in a minute. Down West Country. So she said, if he'll be band leader and I would be assistant to her, she would take it on, and she took it on. She had 1 or 2 short sessions right up to the time that we had that little spell, 1970-ish, at Wisbeach. And I thought I was going to have an easy time then. And those 100 children all did. Many a time I drove down Mill Road and I thought, oh, if only I could turn around and go back with our 4 youngsters in the back of the car. And I'd been up at 6 o'clock working down, feeding animals and so on. And there's a spot along the 20 pence road, and I know the very spot, and I remember it every time we go past. This particular winter morning, I said to Mari, she'd got Philip on her lap with his bottle, which was the procedure then to get in quieting down before the meeting. I said, I don't know I can stand this any longer. She just sat there. She said, well, you'll have to. And that's all she said. And I remember those words that every time I pass that spot of the road, well, you'll have to. And I did until we went to it. And I thought I was going to have an easy time when we went to Wisbeach just to be part of the corps. And I wasn't there long before we haven't got a band sergeant. So I was landed with that and all that.
Yeah.
And we've got half of Wisbeach Corps turned up at Cambridge.
Yeah,
Ron Abbas and Janet and Morris.
Janet Carter's, that's right, yeah.
And
Carter's, the Abbasses.
The last time we went to Norman's Corps in London, we took over 30 bandsmen. But they all somehow...
Right,
Yeah.
All right then, Ray. Well, we've probably got time for one more, if you can think of another. So we've got, you were talking about Olive Ward and Dr. Ward, and before that you were talking about your grandfather.
Yeah.
Occasion. What other one could you talk to us about that sticks in the mind, something that happened in the hall that was a great occasion?
We had John Mott. Will give you more detail of this, because he had a sudden idea. We will do something which he called was trooping of the colours. And he got nearly everybody who was working, active Salvationists in the corps, and 1 or 2 others, and he got someone to be part of any country, Dutch, Swedish, Scottish, and everybody, to do an item. And we had flags that were, the congregation were put to each side, and we had the centre all over. And there was a Mr. Crow, a peculiar man who had lots of clothing somehow or other. John would know all about him, but John got all these clothes representing different countries, and every country was represented and did their item while the rest stood with their flags of the country around. I was a Negro, and there was Sid Hall, Malcolm's uncle, on the photo there, and Bob Bruce and Alfie Ball and another lad Sizer. We were Negroes, and we blacked our faces, which was totally illegal now. I don't know what they would say, but we sang, I'll have shoes, you have shoes, all God's children got shoes, and when we get to heaven, we're going to march around heaven in our shoes. That old Negro song, and that's what we sang, and all the rest. John Taylor, Howard Taylor's brother, was a great trombonist, and he played a medley of Scottish airs, I think, in a kilt. And I think John wore a kilt as well. And Mrs. West, Sheila West, she lives at Witcham now. I was talking to her yesterday, and she was Britannia, and she was with her regalia of Britannia, and she sat on her throne on the platform, and she was talking about it, and she said, yes, I got the photos if I can find them somewhere of that, and John probably has got them anyway. But that was one of the big events of John's before he went into training. That was a great. Then we had the centenary, and that picture of the six of us singing there somewhere. That was the centenary. I think there's something in the background that indicates that.
I wonder which. Was there a photograph of that trip in the colour?
No. Well, we probably got it
Okay.
That's a centenary, I think.
And that's the family singing.
Yeah.
Right. Let me just take a picture of that.
I think we sang. Count Your Blessings is what we sang, I think, on that occasion. And there are various, I think there are more army photos somewhere. There's the old Penitent form. Philip's got a picture straight in front of you. We were clearing the shed out, and Mari came out and told me it was lunchtime. Philip's got a better one of that, I think, on his laptop, of her and I renewing our vows in front of the mercy seat, in front of the reading desk. And we stood there and we didn't know we took that. I said, we will renew our vows now, as we took the mercy seat out of the building, and it's down in another building now. But it's lovely material. It's a pity it couldn't be repolished and put in the somehow. Is there any pictorial indication of what will be provided for the CO to stand as an important part of the hall?
We'll have staging. Right?
Yeah.
Raised up a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's the kind of staging that you'll be able to fold away and put in a cupboard.
Yeah, you'll still be able to remove it. Yeah.
So move it around the room as well, or add to it as well.
Well, you wouldn't be able then to have a heavy mercy seat as we had in past years.
No, we'll get a new mercy seat.
Yeah.
It'll be one that we can very easily.
That could be moved as well.
For example, if we're going to have a barn dance or something like that, we can put it somewhere safe and then bring it back out afterwards. So it might have wheels, or it'll have some way that it can be moved.
But I've thought all the way through that there ought to be a place for the CO to be prominent in the place of worship.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So whoever's reading or presenting needs to be visible, don't they? So they need to be raised up, especially if you're short, like me.
And when you want one or two up there with you, you've got to have sufficient room for them to stand when you're doing a dedication or enrolment.
And the flag as well. So I think it'll be big enough to have half a dozen people there.
Yeah.
But we can add to it if we need it bigger, and we can take bits away if you want it smaller.
Well, that's all being dealt with, but I hadn't seen any visual picture that had been shown. So I was going to ask Steve what was, as I've spoken to you now, but with the death of Grandad and so on, I've left that. Yeah.
Steve's not on the project steering group at the moment, Ray. He was on the last project steering group.
Yeah.
So Steve wouldn't have access to any pictures.
No.
But we, all the time, we're getting new images through, so I'm sure we'll be able to share them.
And Commissioner Ray too is, I suppose, advising as well.
Yeah, he's advising. He's just retired from the group because he's done.
Has he?
He's done 10 years.
Oh.
Yeah. So he feels it's a good time to make space.
Hand it over to the younger ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to have some new members come on.
Yeah.
So, he's just retired.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ray.
Anything of Stuart and Philip's enrolment?
Yeah.
Any importance?
Say again?
After the war, when all our servicemen returned, we had a celebratory festival at the hall, and all the local military dignitaries were invited to come, and they were handed the programme, band and songsters, and each one of them jumped up and gave a tribute, of course, to the army and what they'd done. And there was one high-ranking Air Force man from Duxford, and there were military and naval, and they were all invited to come and share this celebratory festival that we have. And the Air Force man it was his turn to introduced the next item, which was the songsters. And on his sheet, P.O. was songster leader at the time, and this Air Force man looked at his sheet, and it was abbreviated a bit and he said, "We will now have the songster brigade to sing so-and-so under their leader, pilot officer, squadron leader Reed, to conduct them." And we all sniggered. Pilot officer, squadron leader P.O. Reed.
Wonderful.
Yeah, quite a number of things that occurred while I was in the band that were quite amusing.
How would you, Ray, could you give me just a brief thought on your reflections of these almost 90 years and where we are today? You give thanks to God for it all?
It is totally changed. As far, we had 6 occasions that the band was on duty. Open air meeting, open air meeting, open air meeting, and in the summer, the 7th late night meeting under John's dad as bandmaster then. However he fitted in all the things that he did, I don't know. We had a Saturday night meeting, we had a Monday night meeting, and then there would be once a month a divisional corps prayer meeting together, with the DC would come. And that was then a very full and active time, because there were no televisions and there was very little to attract people. So we were all so pleased to be part of the army at that time. There's one, when I first came into the band, I was still at school, and John's father said to me, "Righto, you can play carols, so you can come and help us." So we went carol playing and stood at that very busy junction where the old cattle market was, over Hills Road Bridge. We were standing on that corner and waiting for the collectors to catch up with us, and round the corner came two young lads, not much older than me, and in drab military uniform with great patches sewn in the back. German prisoners of war. They took no notice of us, and John's dad said, "Let's give the old boys a tune." So we played Silent Night, and they were 50 or 60 yards down the road then, and they stopped just like that, and as one they turned, and they stood there, didn't move a muscle. And in the first bar, they recognised what we were playing, Silent Night, and they stood there motionless, and we played it through twice. And that was when things were easing a little bit. They were at Walpole Hall, that was taken by the government to house these prisoners. And in the summer, the German prisoners were attracted by a band on Parker's Piece. And Sunday after Sunday, the German prisoner group grew bigger and bigger, and they would walk all the way to the hall on the pavement, each side of the road. The band was 40 strong in those days, plus the songsters, and they would come and they would stop on the corner while we had our prayer and into the hall. And Sid Cream, I don't know whether that name has arisen, but he was a great character. "Hello, my boys, how are you doing? Are you coming in?" And eventually a couple came in, and then a few more came, and a few more came, and we had 3 forms at the front of the hall filled with German prisoners. And Major Gadsden was CO at the time, and he simply as he could had a word for the German prisoners. Then eventually a very smart German came in, smart uniform, and his English was excellent. And he chatted with Major Gadsden, and the two of them would stand on the platform, and Major Gadsden had chosen a scripture passage, and it was read from the German and read from the English. And then a little word for the Germans, translated by the German officer, for the Germans themselves. And then suddenly repatriated, they were all gone. And the Sergeant Major, for quite a number of years, had letters back from one of the German, or two of the German, because he used to go and shake hands. He was called Sergeant Major at that time. Ron Joyce's father-in-law. Did you know Ron Joyce, bandmaster down at...
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah. He moved down. It was... He was the Sergeant Major then, his father-in-law. He had, and I should think Ron Joyce's wife has still those letters.
Oh, okay, yeah. I don't know Ron Joyce's wife, but I know his name. So he must be Neil's grandfather, is that?
No, nothing to do.
Oh, no.
No,
oh, I see.
no.
Right.
He was in the Air Force with Peter Mott.
Oh, right, okay.
And Peter brought him home a Salvationist, Ron Joyce, a Salvationist from up north. So, but he stayed at Cambridge until he was demobbed, and he'd play the top euphonium solos of the day. He was a great musician, and he went down a bandmaster. I got the address of his daughter, who was in Sunday school, and I've kept in touch with her quite a bit. But if I could find her mother, I think she'd fish out those German letters that came back from Germany.
Okay.
But what they found in Germany when they returned, I don't know.